The first night I ignored the rule, something waited at my bedroom door. I honestly thought the rule about sleeping with your feet towards the door was just something old people said when they had nothing better to worry about. You know the sort of thing. Don't put new shoes on the table. Don't open an umbrella indoors. Don't whistle at night. Don't leave a mirror facing your bed. All those little bits of nonsense that get passed around in families until nobody remembers who first said them or why. In my building, the rule was simple. Never sleep with your face towards the hallway. Not, don't leave your door unlocked. Not, don't talk to strangers. Not even, don't go wandering around the estate after midnight, which would have made sense, because the estate was grim enough in daylight. No, it was always that one thing. Make sure your feet point towards the door. I live in Whitby now, but not the nice postcard bit with the Abbey and the goth shops and tourists taking moody photographs by the harbor. I mean the other Whitby, the wet concrete Whitby. The Whitby of council blocks, gulls screaming over bins, stairwells that always smell faintly of bleach and old smoke, and sea wind that gets into your bones even when the windows are shut. The block is called Dunmere House, though everyone just calls it Dunmere. 12 floors, built in the 70s, beige brick, rusted balcony rails, a lift that works when it feels like it and sulks the rest of the time. I moved in after my mom died. I was 28, skint, exhausted, and trying to convince myself that taking a night shift care job was a sensible life choice. The rent was cheap, the flat was small, and from the kitchen window I could see a strip of black sea between two rooftops if I leaned at the right angle. At first, I thought I'd landed on my feet. The neighbors were odd, but not unfriendly. Mrs. Harrow from 6B left bags of mint humbugs outside people's doors. Mr. Vale from 9D, no relation to me, watered plastic plants on his balcony every Sunday morning. A man on the 3rd floor kept pigeons illegally and denied it while feathers stuck to his dressing gown. And then there was Mrs. Kershaw. Every block has someone like Mrs. Kershaw. She knew who got deliveries, who owed rent, who was sleeping with whose husband, and which flats had mold behind the wardrobes. She was tiny, sharp-eyed, and always dressed like she was either coming from a funeral or preparing for one. The first thing she said to me was not hello. It was, which way's your bed facing? I had 2 boxes in my arms and a microwave balanced badly against my hip. So I thought I'd misheard her. Sorry? Your bed, she said. In there, which way? I laughed because that felt like the safest thing to do. Haven't got it up yet. She didn't laugh back. When you do, feet to the door. Not your head, not your face, feet. Then she looked over my shoulder into the flat as if something might already be standing there listening. I remember feeling annoyed more than scared. I was tired. I had been carrying boxes up 6 flights because the lift was broken again. I had no kettle, no curtains, and no patience for creepy old woman warnings. Right, I said. I'll keep that in mind. She reached out and grabbed my wrist. Not hard, not aggressively, but with this cold, dry urgency that made me stop breathing for a second. You do that, love, she whispered. You really do. For the first few weeks, nothing happened, and I mean nothing. That is the worst part. Looking back, everything seemed fine, like nothing would happen. I went to work. I came home in the gray mornings. I slept through bin lorries and gulls and children shouting outside the shops. I bought cheap curtains. I learned which steps creaked in the stairwell. I learned that the 4th floor landing light flickered when it rained. The rule became just another weird thing about Dunmere. People mentioned it casually, like taking the bins down. Mrs. Harrow said it while handing me a tin of biscuits. Don't sleep wrong way round, pet. You're new. The pigeon man said it while pretending not to carry birdseed. Feet to the door, yeah? Especially on Tuesdays. Even the postman, who wasn't from the block, once paused outside my flat and said, You settled in all right? Bed facing proper? I stared at him. He went pale, muttered, Never mind, and hurried down the stairs so fast I heard him slip on the next landing. That was the first time I felt something tighten in my stomach. Not fear exactly, not yet. Just the horrible awareness that everyone knew something I didn't. My job didn't help. I worked nights at a residential care home near the edge of town, mostly sitting with elderly residents who got confused after dark. I was used to odd comments. People with dementia say frightening things sometimes. Not because they mean to scare you, but because their minds are half in memory and half in dream. So when Elsie Harrow, Mrs. Harrow's older sister, as it turned out, grabbed my sleeve during my 3rd week and whispered, "Don't let them see your eyes first," I tried to stay professional. "What was that, Elsie?" She was sitting upright in bed, her white hair flattened on one side, her mouth trembling. "Feet first," she said. "Always feet first. They'll take feet if they must, but eyes are sweeter." I told myself she was confused. I told myself a lot of things in those days. Then came the night of the knocking. It was just after 1:30 in the morning when I got back from shift. The rain was coming sideways across the estate, rattling against windows and turning the stairwell walls dark with damp. The lift was dead again, naturally, so I climbed the stairs with my shoes squeaking and my coat dripping onto the concrete. Dunmere was quiet in that deep, ugly way tower blocks get at night. Not peaceful, never peaceful. More like the whole building was holding its breath. On the 5th floor landing, I heard it. Knock. 3 floors above me, maybe. Knock. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a soft, careful tap. Knock. I stopped with one hand on the railing. There are sounds you expect in a block at night. Pipes ticking, TVs murmuring through walls, someone coughing, a baby crying, a drunk arguing with the door. This wasn't any of those. It had patience. That sounds stupid, but it did. The knocks came with the polite rhythm of someone who knew they would be answered eventually. I waited. Nothing. Then from somewhere below me, a door opened a crack. Mrs. Kershaw's voice floated up through the stairwell. "Martha?" I leaned over the railing. "Yeah?" Even in the dim emergency light, I could see her face. She looked terrified. Not startled, not annoyed, terrified. "Go into your flat," she said. "I think someone's knocking." "No, love," she said very quietly. "Someone's answering." Before I could ask what she meant, another sound came from above us. A door handle turning, slowly. Metal whining against metal. Then a soft click. Mrs. Kershaw shut her door at once. I stood there like an idiot, rain dripping from my hair, heart beginning to thump properly now. The landing above me was dark. The light had gone out. I could see the edge of the stairs leading up, black and still. I remember thinking, with ridiculous clarity, that I did not want to see a pair of shoes appear at the top. Then something breathed. Not close, not even on my landing, but somewhere above me in the stairwell, something took in a long, wet breath, like a person trying to smell through a mouthful of water. I ran. I'm not ashamed of that. I ran so hard I nearly dropped my keys. I got into my flat, slammed the door, locked it, chained it, and stood with my back against it while my whole body shook. For a while, nothing happened. Then came one final knock. Not from the corridor, from inside my bedroom. One soft tap against the wood of my wardrobe door. I didn't sleep that morning. I sat on the kitchen floor with every light on, holding a bread knife like that would help, watching the bedroom doorway until the sky turned gray. And when daylight finally came, I forced myself to go in. The wardrobe was shut. My bed was still where I had put it, head towards the door, face towards the hallway. And on my pillow, pressed neatly into the fabric, was a damp gray handprint far too long to be human. I didn't touch the handprint. That's the first thing you need to understand. I saw it. I stood there for a good 30 seconds, trying to convince myself it was just damp from the window, or something off my coat, or anything that made sense. But I didn't touch it, because it didn't look like it had been placed there. It looked like something had rested there. Like a hand, too long, too thin, had pressed down slowly, carefully, as if testing the softness of the pillow, or checking whether something underneath it might react. I backed out of the bedroom without turning my back on it. I don't remember deciding to do that. It just felt like the only sensible thing. Like when you see a dog you don't trust and you don't break eye contact. I shut the door. Properly. Not all the way. Just enough that I could still see the edge of the bed if I leaned slightly. But then everything seemed fine. Like nothing would happen. That's how it always starts, isn't it? You have a moment that should terrify you, and then the world just carries on. The kettle still works. The neighbor still bangs about upstairs. Your phone still lights up with stupid notifications. And your brain, desperate for normality, starts building explanations. Condensation. Damp. A trick of the light. You tell yourself it's nothing. You need it to be nothing. I made tea. I sat at the little table by the window. I didn't look back into the bedroom. not properly. Just quick glances, like checking a shadow to make sure it hasn't moved. I told myself I'd clean it later. I told myself I'd sort the bed out before the next shift. I told myself a lot of things. Around 10 in the morning, there was a knock at my door. I nearly screamed. It was only Mrs. Harrow. She stood there in her cardigan, hair pinned back too tight, holding a plastic tub of something that smelled vaguely of boiled cabbage and pepper. "You look rough, pet," she said, peering at me. "Night shift? Take it out of you?" I hesitated. For a second, just a second, I thought about telling her, about the knocking, about the breathing, about the handprint. But the words felt ridiculous in my mouth. Saying them out loud would make them real in a way I wasn't ready for. "Just didn't sleep well," I said instead. Her eyes flicked past me into the flat. "Bed's the right way round, is it?" There it was again. I forced a smile. "I haven't moved it since I came in." That wasn't what she asked. She stepped closer without being invited, her voice dropping. "Feet to the door, Martha. You don't want to be facing it." "I know," I said, a bit sharper than I meant to. "Everyone keeps saying that." She didn't take offense, just nodded slowly, like she expected resistance. "They only come in proper if they can see you first," she murmured. "Otherwise they have to feel about." I felt something cold slide down my spine. "Who does?" I asked, but she just pressed the container into my hands. "Eat that. Put some color in you and fix your bed." Then she turned and shuffled back down the corridor, leaving me standing there with the smell of cabbage and a question I didn't want answered. I shut the door and locked it again. This time, I didn't pretend things were fine. I went straight into the bedroom. The handprint was still there. It hadn't dried. That's what got me. It should have dried. Even if it was just water or something spilled, it should have faded, soaked in, changed shape. But it looked exactly the same. Dark, damp, and wrong. And the fingers, God, the fingers. They were too long, not stretched, not smeared, just longer than they should be. One of them bent slightly at the end, like it had a joint where it shouldn't. I forced myself to step closer. "You're being stupid," I muttered. "It's just a mark." I reached out, stopped, pulled my hand back. I don't know why. I couldn't have explained it then, but something about touching it felt like answering a question I hadn't heard yet. So instead, I stripped the pillowcase off with 2 fingers and shoved it into the washing basket. The sheet underneath was clean. No mark, nothing. That should have made me feel better. It didn't, because it meant whatever had touched the pillow hadn't pressed all the way through. It had only needed the surface. I changed the bedding properly after that. New pillowcase, new sheet. I even flipped the mattress, which is not something I do lightly. By the time I was done, the room looked normal again. Too normal, like it was waiting for me to believe it. I stood there, staring at the bed, head towards the door, face towards the hallway. I could hear Mrs. Kershaw's voice in my head. Feet to the door. I rolled my eyes at myself. "Fine," I said out loud to nobody. "Happy now?" I dragged the bed. It scraped against the floor, loud and unpleasant. I turned it slowly until the pillows were against the opposite wall, my feet now pointing straight at the door. There. Done. I stepped back, arms folded, as if expecting something to happen. Nothing did. Of course it didn't, because it was daylight, because everything always waits. I went to bed around 11, exhausted but wired, the kind of tired where your body wants to shut down but your brain won't let it. I left the hall light on. I don't usually, but that day I didn't want the doorway to be dark, just in case. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, feet towards the door. It felt wrong. That's the stupid part. After all that, it felt wrong. Like I'd flipped something that wasn't meant to be flipped. Like I was lying in bed backwards. I almost changed it back. I actually sat up, swung my legs over the side, ready to drag the bed again. But then I remembered the handprint and the breathing, and the way Mrs. Kershaw had looked at me. So I lay back down. "Get a grip," I muttered. "It's just a bed." Eventually, I drifted off. I don't know how long I slept. It couldn't have been more than an hour or two. But something woke me. Not a noise, not a dream. Just that sudden, horrible awareness that you are no longer alone. My eyes opened. The room was dim. The hall light still on, casting a dull yellow rectangle across the floor and up the edge of the bed. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Because something was standing in the doorway. I could see it in the corner of my vision. Not clearly, not fully. Just enough. It was tall, too tall for the frame. Its head, I couldn't quite make it out. It seemed to bend or tilt or not be where it should be. But its arms, they were hanging down, long, dragging, the tips of them resting just inside the threshold, like it couldn't quite bring itself to step over, or wasn't allowed to. I felt my chest tighten, my heart hammering so hard I was certain it could hear it. Don't move. Don't react. Don't let it know you're awake. I don't know where that thought came from, but I held on to it like it was the only thing keeping me alive. The thing shifted slightly. One of its arms moved, not lifting, not reaching, just sliding forward along the floor, slowly, carefully, like it was feeling for something. My feet, it was reaching for my feet. And for the first time since I moved into Dunmere House, I understood the rule, not as superstition, not as habit, but as something simple and brutal. If it touched your feet, you might still be alive when it left. If it reached your face, I shut my eyes, held perfectly still and waited for it to find me. I don't know how long I lay there pretending to be asleep. Time does something strange when you're that scared. Seconds stretch. Your thoughts get loud and then vanish completely, like someone flicking a light on and off inside your head. All I could feel was my pulse and the floor, because I could hear it now, that dragging sound, a soft, wet scrape, slow, deliberate, getting closer. I kept my eyes shut, but my whole body was listening. You don't realize how many small sounds exist in a room until you're trying to separate them from something that shouldn't be there. The hum of the fridge in the next room, the pipes ticking faintly in the walls, the distant hiss of tires on wet roads outside. And underneath all of it, that sound. Closer, closer. Then it stopped, right at the end of the bed. My feet were uncovered. I always sleep like that, 1 foot out usually. It's comfortable, or it was. Now it felt like I'd left a door open. Something touched my toes, not cold, that's what I expected. Something dead, something empty, something like a draft. But it wasn't. It was warm, soft, and slightly damp. I nearly flinched. I had to bite down on the inside of my cheek to stop myself reacting. The taste of blood filled my mouth, sharp and metallic, but it grounded me enough to stay still. The fingers, if that's what they were, moved slowly across my foot, exploring, testing, like it was trying to work out what I was. I felt it press gently against my heel, then lifted a fraction off the mattress before letting it drop again. A small, disappointed sort of movement. Then a sound. Not a voice, not properly. More like breath being pushed through something that didn't quite know how to shape words. It lingered there, hovering. I could feel it thinking. That sounds mad, I know, but it did. There was a pause, heavy and expectant, like it was deciding something important. Then, no. The word came out wrong, wet, slurred, like it had been borrowed from someone else. No eyes. Every muscle in my body locked. It wanted eyes. It needed them. I understood that with a clarity that made me feel sick. The thing shifted again, and for one horrifying second, I thought it was going to move further up the bed. I thought it had realized, that it knew I was awake, that it was going to climb over me but it didn't. Instead, it withdrew, slowly, reluctantly. The weight lifted from the mattress as whatever it was pulled back, its limbs dragging again across the floor. I heard it retreat to the doorway, that same awful scraping sound, and then silence. Proper silence, the kind that presses in on your ears. I didn't move. I didn't dare. I lay there for what felt like hours, every part of me straining to hear if it was still there, if it was watching, if it was waiting for me to make a mistake. Nothing. Eventually, very, very slowly, I opened my eyes. The doorway was empty, just the dull yellow light from the hall, stretching across the floor like nothing had ever interrupted it. I sat up in one sudden movement, my whole body shaking. "Okay," I whispered, voice cracking. "Okay, okay, okay." But it wasn't okay, because I could still feel it. Not on my skin, inside my head, that idea, that understanding, if my face had been towards the door. I swung my legs off the bed and stood up too quickly, nearly losing my balance. The room tilted, and I had to grab the wall to steady myself. "Get a grip," I muttered, but my voice didn't sound like mine anymore. It sounded thin, far away. I stepped towards the doorway, stopped. There was a part of me, a stupid, stubborn part, that wanted to look properly, to check the hallway, to prove that it had gone. Because that's what you do, isn't it? You check, you reassure yourself, you prove there's nothing there. I took another step. The hall light flickered, Just once. That was enough. I backed away immediately, heart slamming against my ribs. No, I said out loud, more firmly this time. No, not doing that. I shut the bedroom door, locked it, then dragged the chair from the kitchen and wedged it under the handle, even though I knew deep down that if something like that wanted to come through a door, a cheap wooden chair wasn't going to stop it. But it made me feel better. A little. I didn't go back to bed. I couldn't. I sat on the floor with my back against the wall, facing the door, the light still on, and waited for morning. Every so often, I thought I heard something in the flat. A shift, a faint movement. Once I was sure I heard breathing again, very soft, right on the other side of the door. But I couldn't tell if it was real or if my brain was just replaying what had happened. That's the worst part, not knowing. By the time daylight crept in through the curtains, I felt like I'd aged 10 years. Everything looked normal again. Of course it did. It always does. I stood up on stiff legs and carefully moved the chair away from the door. My hand hovered over the handle for a moment before I forced myself to turn it. The bedroom was exactly as I'd left it. Bed slightly rumpled. Pillow out of place. Nothing else. No marks, no signs. Nothing to prove what I'd experienced. I let out a shaky breath. See? I said, though I wasn't sure who I was talking to. Nothing there. But even as I said it, my eyes drifted to the bottom of the bed, to where my feet had been. There, on the wooden floor, just inside the doorway, were two long, faint streaks, like something had been dragged away. I stared at them, my mouth going dry, and then before I could stop myself, I whispered, "What happens if it finds your eyes first?" The flat didn't answer. But somewhere, deep in the building, I heard a distant knock. 3 times, slow, patient, waiting for someone to answer. I didn't go back to work that night. I told them I was sick, which wasn't exactly a lie. I hadn't slept, my hands wouldn't stop shaking, and every time I closed my eyes, I felt that warm, searching touch on my feet again. They didn't argue. Night staff come and go all the time. People burn out, people stop answering calls. It's not unusual. What was unusual was how quickly word spread through Dunmere. By midday, people were looking at me differently, not openly, not in a dramatic, point-in-point way, just longer glances, conversations that stopped when I stepped into the stairwell, doors closing a little too quickly. They knew something had happened, or worse, they knew what had happened. Mrs. Kershaw knocked on my door around 1 in the afternoon, not politely this time, not softly, sharp, urgent, 3 times. I flinched so badly I knocked over my mug. All right, I called, my voice coming out thinner than I wanted. I checked the hallway through the peephole before opening the door. Just Mrs. Kershaw, arms folded, face set. I opened it a crack. "You answered it?" she said immediately. "I didn't." "You did," she cut in. "Or it answered you, same difference." My stomach dropped. "I didn't open the door," I insisted. "I stayed inside. I didn't go into the hall. I didn't." "Where was your head?" That stopped me. She watched me closely, too closely. "Where was your head?" "Towards the door," I admitted quietly. She closed her eyes, not in frustration, in resignation. "Right," she said after a moment. "Come on then. Where?" "You don't get to ask that anymore, love." I should have refused. I should have shut the door, locked it, pretended none of this was real. But there was something in her voice, something final, that made it clear I didn't have that option anymore. So I grabbed my coat and followed her. We didn't take the lift. Of course we didn't. We went down the stairs, her pace faster than I'd ever seen, her hand gripping the railing like she expected something to pull her back if she let go. "Has this happened before?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yes." "What is it?" She didn't answer straight away. We reached the 4th floor landing. The flickering light buzzed overhead. "It's not one thing," she said finally. "That's the problem. People always want it to be one thing. A ghost, a monster, something you can name and deal with." She stopped walking, turned to look at me. "But it isn't. It's whatever notices you first." A cold weight settled in my chest. "And it noticed me?" I asked. She gave a small, humorless smile. "No, love, it noticed your mistake." We continued down. By the time we reached the ground floor, I could feel it again. That tension in the air, that sense of something watching, even in daylight. "Where are we going?" I asked again. "6th floor," she said. "Harrow's flat." My stomach twisty. She's not right. The corridor on the 6th floor felt different, quieter than usual, heavier. Mrs. Harrow's door was already open when we got there. That should have been my first warning. Inside, the flat smelled wrong. Not rot, not exactly, just damp and something faintly metallic underneath it. "Elsie?" Mrs. Kershaw called, stepping inside. No answer. I followed, slower, my eyes scanning the room. Everything looked normal at first glance. Sofa, table, television still on, playing some daytime program to an empty room. But then I noticed the chair. It had been dragged, turned, facing the hallway. "Why's her chair like that?" I asked. Mrs. Kershaw didn't answer. She moved down the hall towards the bedroom. I hesitated, then followed. The bedroom door was half open. Inside, Elsie Harrow sat upright in bed, perfectly still. Her eyes were open. That was the second warning, because she wasn't blinking. "Elsie?" Mrs. Kershaw said, softer now. No response. I stepped closer, my heart picking up speed. "Is she?" "She's alive," Mrs. Kershaw said quickly. "She's breathing." And she was, barely. Shallow, uneven breaths that made her chest rise and fall in small, jerking motions. But something was wrong, very wrong. "Elsie?" I tried again. Her eyes moved not towards me, past me to the doorway. My skin prickled. "Don't," Mrs. Kershaw said sharply. "Don't look." But it was too late, because I'd already started turning. Just a little. Just enough to see movement in the corner of the room. Not in the doorway. Not fully. Just a shift. Like something had pulled back the moment I noticed it. My breath caught. "Did you see that?" I whispered. "Yes," Mrs. Kershaw said. "And you shouldn't have." Elsie made a sound, a wet, broken little noise in the back of her throat. We both looked at her. Her lips were moving, trying to form words. I leaned closer without thinking. "What is it?" I said. "Elsie, what do you see?" Her eyes snapped to mine. And for the first time, I realized something worse than fear. Recognition. She knew what had happened to me. "Don't let it learn," she rasped. "Learn what?" Her fingers twitched against the blanket. My blood ran cold. Mrs. Kershaw grabbed my arm. "We're leaving." "What? No, she's gone," she said flatly. "Whatever was there last night, it didn't take her. Not properly. It's waiting." "For what?" "For you to give it more." I stared at her. "What does that mean?" She pulled me towards the door. "It means you don't stand in rooms where it's already been invited." We stepped out into the hallway, and that's when I saw it, on the wall, right beside Elsie's door. A mark, long, faint, dragging down the paint like something had leaned there and slowly slid away. My breath hitched. "Those weren't there before," I said. Mrs. Kershaw didn't even look. "I know." "Then it followed you." The words landed harder than anything else she'd said. "No," I said immediately. "No, that's not." "You brought its attention here," she said, not unkindly. "That's what happens when you get it wrong the first time. It doesn't finish with you. It studies you." I felt sick. "I didn't do anything," I said. "I stayed still. I didn't react. It left." "Yes," she said, "and now it's curious." We stood there for a moment, the corridor stretching out around us, quiet and watching. "Curious about what?" I asked. She finally turned to look at me. "About what you'll do next." That night, I didn't just move my bed. I changed everything. Curtains shut, wardrobe door locked, every mirror in the flat covered with a towel. I even pushed the sofa against the wall so there was no open space behind it. It still didn't feel like enough. Because the worst part wasn't what had already happened. It was the fact that I understood it now. The rules weren't there to protect you. Not completely. They were there to limit what could happen. To make sure that when something found you, it didn't take everything at once. And as I sat there in the dim light, listening to the building settle around me, I realized something that made my chest tighten all over again. The knocking hadn't been random. It hadn't been looking for just anyone. It had been patient, careful, choosing, and somehow it had chosen me. I didn't leave the flat the next day, or the day after that. I told work I needed more time. They didn't argue, again, but there was a tone in the manager's voice I didn't like. That careful politeness people use when they've already decided you're unreliable. Fine, let them think that. I had bigger problems, because once you notice something like that, once you understand even a fraction of it, you don't get to go back to normal. You start seeing patterns, small things at first. The way doors in the corridor were always shut properly, never left ajar. The way people stepped over certain cracks in the stairwell without looking down. The way Mrs. Harrow's sister, before she stopped speaking entirely, would only sit with her back against two walls, never one. It wasn't random. None of it was. It was all management. control, containment. And the more I thought about it, the worse it got. Because it meant people knew, not everything, not the full picture, but enough to behave a certain way, enough to survive. That night, I finally forced myself to step outside. I needed air, needed proof that the world still existed beyond my flat, needed to remind myself that this wasn't all in my head. The estate looked the same as always. Gray, damp, wind pushing rubbish along the pavement, a flickering streetlight at the corner that had probably been reported a dozen times and never fixed. But it felt different. Or maybe I did. I kept noticing things I'd never paid attention to before. A woman walking her dog who refused to pass directly under a balcony, choosing instead to step out into the road. A man waiting for a taxi who stood with his back pressed flat against a lamppost, scanning the street in short, controlled movements, but never turning fully around. Even the kids playing near the bins, they kept glancing over their shoulders, but never for more than a split second, like they'd learned the rule instinctively or been taught the hard way. I pulled my coat tighter around me and headed towards the corner shop. That's when I saw him, leaning against the wall beside the shuttered takeaway. Mid-30s maybe, dark hair, scruffy beard, high-vis jacket tied around his waist. He had the look of someone who worked odd hours, paramedic I guess before I even got close. He was watching me, not in a creepy way, in a knowing way. Like he'd already made a decision about something. "You're the one from Dunmere," he said as I approached. I slowed. "Yeah." He nodded once, like that confirmed something. Thought so. I should have kept walking. I really should have. But there was something about him, something steady, that made me stop. "You know about the rules?" I asked, lowering my voice without meaning to. He let out a short breath that might have been a laugh. "Bit late to be asking that, isn't it?" My chest tightened. "So you do?" "Course I do." He straightened up. "Name's Tom. Martha." "I know." That sent a chill through me. "How?" "Word gets around," he said simply, "especially when something new gets noticed." I didn't like the way he said that. "Something new?" I repeated. He studied me for a moment, then nodded towards the shop. "You going in?" "Yeah." "Good, I'll walk with you." We moved together without another word, the automatic doors sliding open with a tired hiss. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, too bright, too clinical. It felt safer, marginally. Tom grabbed a bottle of water. I picked up tea bags I didn't need, just to have something in my hands. "You saw it," he said quietly, not looking at me. I swallowed. "Yes." "Doorway?" "Yes." "Feet first?" "Yes." He nodded again, like he was ticking boxes. "Good." I stared at him. "Good?" I echoed. "Are you serious? You're alive, aren't you?" he said, finally meeting my eyes. "That's what good means now." That shut me up. We paid and stepped back outside. The air felt colder, sharper. "So what is it?" I asked. "The thing in the doorway." Tom took a sip of water, considering. "If I say it's one thing, I'm lying," he said. "If I say it's nothing, I'm an idiot. That's not helpful." "No," he agreed, "but it's honest." I folded my arms, frustrated. "Look, I need something more than that. It followed me. It's already." "I know," he cut in. "I've seen the marks." My stomach dropped. "You've been in the building?" "Paramedic," he reminded me. "We get called to Dunmere a lot. That doesn't explain. It does if you know what to look for." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Listen to me, Martha. What you saw, that's just the beginning. It's not fully here yet, not properly." "Then what was it doing in my room?" "Checking, testing, seeing what kind of person you are." I felt a surge of anger. "I'm not something to be tested," I snapped. He didn't react. "That's exactly what you are now," he said calmly. "Same as the rest of us." "The rest of you?" He hesitated, just for a second, then sighed. "There are people," he said slowly, "who deal with this. Not officially. No badges, no meetings. Just people who know the rules and try to keep things from getting worse. Like Mrs. Kershaw?" Tom almost smiled. "Yeah, like her, and a few others." "And you?" He shrugged. "I patch people up. Sometimes that overlaps." I stared at him, trying to process that. "So what do I do?" I asked. "How do I make it stop?" His expression changed. Not pity, not fear, something worse. Resignation. "You don't," he said. My stomach twisted. "What?" "You don't make it stop," he repeated. "You manage it. You learn the rules properly. You don't break them again." "And if I do?" He held my gaze. "Then next time it won't stop at your feet." The words hit harder than I expected. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I forced out, "Why me?" Tom looked past me, down the street, like he was checking something. Wrong place, he said. Wrong time, wrong position. That's it. That's enough. I shook my head. No, that's not. There has to be a reason. It knocked. It waited. Yes, he said sharply. It waited. That's the bit you should be worried about. A cold silence settled between us. What does that mean? I asked quietly. He stepped back, putting a bit of distance between us. It means it's patient, he said. And things that are patient don't give up. I felt that familiar dread creeping back in. But it left, I said. It didn't take anything. Tom's eyes flicked up to the windows of Dunmere House, then back to me. You sure about that? My mouth went dry. I didn't feel anything, I said, though even as I spoke, I wasn't certain anymore. He nodded slowly. Yeah, he said. That's what most people say. Before I could ask what that meant, he started walking. Wait, Tom, I called. What happens now? He didn't stop. Now? He said over his shoulder. Now you pay attention. To what? He paused at the corner, glancing back just long enough to meet my eyes. To anything that feels even slightly wrong, he said. Because that's the only warning you're going to get. Then he turned and disappeared down the street. I stood there for a long time after he left, the wind tugging at my coat, the estate carrying on around me like nothing had changed. But everything had, because I understood something now. Something simple, something awful. The rules weren't there to keep you safe. They were there to make sure you didn't make things worse. And as I walked back towards Dunmere, I couldn't shake the feeling that I already had, that somewhere inside my flat, or maybe even inside me, something had started paying attention, and it wasn't done yet. I didn't want to walk home with Tom's words in my head. That's the truth of it. I honestly thought if I kept moving, if I stayed out a bit longer, circled the block, waited for the noise of normal life to drown it out, then whatever had started in my flat wouldn't follow me out here. Stupid, I know. But when you're scared, you cling to the smallest bits of logic, even if they don't hold. So I took the long way back, cut through the narrow ginnel between the shuttered bakery and the laundrette, past the bins that always smelled like sour milk and wet cardboard. It was quicker usually. A straight line back to Dunmere. I'd walked it dozens of times before, never thought twice about it. That was before I knew what to think twice about. Halfway down, I realized something was off. Not obvious, nothing dramatic, just quiet, too quiet. The wind had dropped, completely. No rustling rubbish, no distant traffic, no voices from the flats above. Even the hum of electricity from the streetlights seemed to have faded. I slowed, then stopped, and that's when I heard it. Footsteps, behind me, soft, delayed. I froze. There's a very particular kind of fear that hits you in moments like that. Not the loud, panicked kind, but something colder, sharper. Like your body has already decided what's happening before your brain catches up. Don't look. The thought came so clearly it might as well have been spoken out loud. Don't look behind you. My shoulders tensed. The footsteps came again. One step, then just a fraction too late, another, mimicking. I swallowed hard. It's just someone walking, I muttered, barely above a whisper. Just someone. The next step came almost on top of mine, too close, too precise. I started walking again, faster now, my breath shallow. The ginnel stretched ahead, longer than I remembered. The far end seemed further away, the light there dimmer somehow, like it was being pulled back. The footsteps kept pace, always just behind, never quite matching. Then, without thinking, I did exactly what Tom told me not to do. I glanced back, just a quick look, barely even turning my head, and for a split second, I saw my shadow. Only it wasn't right. It was too long, too wide at the shoulders, and it didn't quite line up with where I was standing. I snapped my head forward again, heart slamming so hard it hurt. Don't, I whispered to myself. Don't do that again. The footsteps stopped, completely. The silence rushed back in, thick and suffocating. I almost laughed, actually laughed, because for one stupid moment I thought that was it, that I'd imagined the whole thing, that my brain had just taken Tom's warnings and run with them. But then everything seemed fine, like nothing would happen. And that's when it got worse. The air behind me shifted. Not a breeze, not movement, just pressure, like something had stepped into the space I'd left behind. And then a breath, right at the back of my neck. Warm, too warm. I flinched this time, couldn't help it. My whole body jerked forward and I broke into a run. The gentle seemed to stretch even longer, the exit refusing to get closer no matter how fast I moved. My shoes slipped slightly on the damp concrete, my lungs burning as I pushed harder. Behind me, no footsteps, no sound. That was worse, because I could still feel it, right there, keeping pace without needing to move. I burst out onto the street, stumbling slightly as the open space hit me. The wind came back all at once, sharp and cold, and the distant noise of traffic rushed in like I'd broken through a barrier. I spun around. There was nothing there, just the dark mouth of the Gentle, empty and still. My shadow stretched out in front of me, normal again, cast by the flickering streetlight above. I stood there, breathing hard, trying to steady myself. "See?" I said, voice shaking. "Nothing there, just stress, that's all." But even as I said it, something didn't feel right. I looked down, at my shadow. It moved when I moved, it bent when I bent, but for just a second it lagged, a fraction. So small I might have imagined it, but it was enough. I stepped back, the shadow followed, perfectly, too perfectly. I turned and hurried towards Dunmere, not running this time, but not slow either. Just fast enough to feel like I was in control. I didn't look behind me again, not once. The entrance to the building loomed ahead, the familiar chip paint and buzzing lights somehow more comforting than it ever had been before. I pushed inside, the heavy door slamming shut behind me with a dull echo. Safe. That's what I told myself. I'm inside. It can't follow me inside. But then I remembered what Mrs. Kershaw said. It's not one thing. It's whatever notices you first. The stairwell felt tighter than usual, the walls closer. I started up, one step at a time, my hand gripping the railing. Second floor, third. On the fourth floor landing, the light flickered again. I stopped, listened, nothing. Then a soft drip from somewhere above. Water hitting concrete in an uneven rhythm. Drip, pause, drip. Too irregular, too deliberate. I swallowed, forcing myself to keep moving. Fifth floor, sixth. By the time I reached my landing, my nerves were stretched so thin I felt like one more sound would snap them completely. My door was right there, closed, still, normal. I fumbled with my keys, nearly dropping them twice before finally getting the lock open. I stepped inside quickly, shutting the door behind me and leaning against it. Safe, safe, safe. I repeated it in my head like it might make it true. After a moment, I pushed myself upright and turned towards the flat. Everything looked the same, too the same. The chair still wedged under the bedroom door, the towels still covering the mirrors, the sofa still pressed against the wall. Nothing out of place, nothing disturbed. I let out a slow breath. "Okay," I said quietly. "Okay, you're fine." Then I took one step forward. From inside the bedroom, a soft movement, followed by the faintest sound of something dragging slowly across the floor. I froze, every muscle locking in place, because I knew, without needing to check, that whatever had followed me through that Gentle hadn't stayed outside. I didn't move, not straight away. I stood there just inside the door, one hand still on the handle, listening to that sound again, soft, slow, deliberate, dragging, from inside my bedroom. It wasn't loud. That was the worst part. It sounded careful, like it didn't want to wake me, or maybe like it already knew I was awake and didn't mind. My eyes flicked to the chair wedged under the bedroom door. It hadn't moved, still pressed tight under the handle, still exactly where I left it, which meant whatever was inside hadn't come through the door. My throat went dry. "Right," I whispered to myself. "Right. Okay, think properly. Don't panic. Panicking gets you noticed." That thought came uninvited, but I held on to it anyway. The dragging sound came again, closer to the door this time. A slow, wet scrape, something brushing against wood. I took a step back, then another, until my shoulders hit the front door again. I could leave. That was the first real, solid thought that made sense. I could unlock the door, get out into the corridor, bang on someone's flat, get help. And then what? The answer came immediately. You bring it with you. I froze, because that felt right, horribly right. If it had followed me in once, it could follow me out again, and then it wouldn't just be my problem, it would be everyone's. The dragging stopped. Silence, a thick, listening silence. I realized I was holding my breath. Slowly, carefully, I let it out. "Okay," I murmured. "Okay, we're not doing anything stupid." My eyes moved around the flat, searching for something. A weapon, a plan, anything. All I had was the kitchen and a chair. Brilliant. Another sound. This time, right up against the door. A faint pressure. like something leaning its weight against it from the other side. The handle twitched, just slightly. The chair creaked in response. I felt my chest tighten. "No," I said under my breath. "No, no, no." The handle turned a fraction more. The chair legs scraped against the floor, not enough to move, just enough to complain. Then, a pause and a soft sound. Not quite a voice, more like breath forced through something that didn't have the right shape for it. I closed my eyes for a second, because I knew that sound. I'd heard it before, at the end of my bed. No, eyes. My stomach dropped. It remembered. It knew me. The pressure against the door eased. The handle stopped moving. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, something slid down the other side. I could hear it, slowly, carefully, dragging itself down the wood, until it reached the floor. And then, silence again. I didn't wait. I moved. Quietly, slowly. I stepped away from the front door and towards the kitchen. Every movement controlled, deliberate. The last thing I wanted was to make noise, to draw attention. I grabbed the biggest knife I had. Not because I thought it would help, but because doing nothing felt worse. The flat seemed smaller now, tighter, like the walls had shifted while I wasn't looking. I edged back towards the bedroom, stopping a few feet from the door. The chair was still in place, the handle still, everything still. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay, it's just a sound behind me." I spun around, too fast, too loud. The living room was empty, but the curtains, they moved, just slightly, like something had brushed past them. My breath caught. "No," I said, louder now. "No, that's not." Something shifted in the corner of my eye. Near the hallway, I turned, nothing. But my shadow wasn't where it should be. It stretched across the wall at an angle that didn't match the light. Too long, too wide. My grip tightened on the knife. "Stop it," I whispered. "Stop." The shadow moved. Not with me, after me. A fraction too late. I stumbled back, and that's when I realized there wasn't just one thing in my flat. There were two. One in the bedroom, and one much closer. I forced myself to stand still. Don't run. Running makes you prey. Don't look directly. Looking gives it shape. Don't react. Reacting teaches it. The rules came flooding back, not from memory, but from instinct. Like something buried deep inside me was finally being forced to the surface. I stared at the wall, at my shadow, and waited. It moved again, just slightly, its head tilting, not in sync with me, watching, learning. I swallowed, my voice barely a breath. "You're not real," I said. The shadow didn't react. Of course it didn't, but something else did. Behind me, the bedroom door creaked slowly, very slowly. The chair scraped across the floor. I didn't turn. I didn't dare. But I could hear it, the door opening, just a crack, enough for something to slip through. The air in the flat shifted, changed, like pressure building before a storm. And then, footsteps, two sets, one behind me, one in front, out of sync, closing in. My chest tightened so hard I thought I might pass out. This was it. This was the moment everything tipped. I could feel it. If I moved wrong, if I looked wrong, if I thought wrong, something would change, something permanent. My voice shook as I spoke again. "Tom said you need belief," I whispered. "You need me to think you're there." The footsteps paused. Both of them. Good. That was good. I clung to that. "So I'm not going to," I said louder now. "I'm not going to look, I'm not going to react. You're not." A breath. Right at my ear. Warm, wet, close enough that I felt against my skin. "You already did." I froze. Because that voice sounded like mine. And in that moment, everything inside me went very, very still. Because I understood something I hadn't before. It didn't need me to believe anymore. I already had. I didn't scream. I think people expect that. That when something truly impossible happens, you panic, you shout, you lose control. But I didn't. I went very, very quiet. Because that voice, my voice, was right. I already believed. Not just a little, not just in theory. I had felt it, seen it twice now. And belief, I realized, wasn't a switch you could flick off. It didn't go away just because you wanted it to. Once something made sense, even in a twisted, horrible way, you couldn't unknow it. And that meant it didn't need to hide anymore. The air in the flat shifted again, heavier, like something settling into place. The footsteps started again, slow, measured, no longer careful, no longer testing. They didn't need to be. I stood there, knife trembling in my hand, staring at the wall while my own shadow stared back. "You're learning," I whispered, not to it, to myself. Because that's what this was, a lesson, a demonstration. Every rule I'd ignored, every warning I'd brushed off, it was all being shown to me now properly, not explained, experienced. The footsteps behind me stopped. The ones in front didn't. They came closer. One step, then another. The shadow on the wall stretched further, its head tilting again, watching me, studying me. I felt something shift inside my chest. Not physically, not pain, just awareness. Like a part of me that had been asleep my whole life had suddenly woken up, and it was terrified. "Okay," I said slowly. "Okay, I get it." The words came easier than I expected, calmer, like I was talking someone through a problem. "Two of you," I continued, "or one of you, split somehow. Doesn't matter." The shadow didn't react, the footsteps didn't stop, but something in the room listened. "That one," I nodded slightly towards the bedroom, without turning. "Needs permission, or a better angle. That's why it stayed at the door." The breath behind me didn't move, didn't interrupt. Good. That one, I focused on the shadow now, feeds on attention, on doubt, on me checking. The shadow's head tilted a fraction further. Not copying me, responding. My heart pounded, but I kept talking, because talking felt like control. "And I've been doing exactly what you want," I said, looking, thinking, trying to make sense of you. The footsteps stopped, right in front of me, so close I could feel the presence there, even without seeing it. My grip tightened on the knife. "Right," I whispered. "So that stops now." I closed my eyes, not out of fear, out of choice. If seeing it gave it shape, then I wouldn't see it. If thinking about it gave it strength, then I would think about something else, anything else. The sea, that strip of water I could just see from my kitchen window, the sound of gulls, the smell of salt, ordinary things, real things. For a moment it worked. The pressure eased, just slightly. The air felt thinner. The presence in front of me wavered. The shadow flickered. Hope surged in my chest. "Yeah," I said quietly. "Yeah, that's it. That's how this works. You're..." Something slammed against the wall behind me. Loud. Violent. I flinched. Couldn't help it. My eyes snapped open, and that was all it needed. The shadow snapped back into place. Sharper. Darker. The presence in front of me solidified. Closer. Too close. And behind me, a hand touched my shoulder. I gasped. The knife dropped from my fingers, clattering uselessly against the floor. The hand was warm, firm, not exploring anymore, holding, keeping me in place. The voice breathed again, right beside my ear, and this time it was clearer, stronger, better. My stomach twisted, because I understood what it meant. It wasn't just learning, it was improving, adapting, refining, based on me, my reactions, my fear, my mistakes. I squeezed my eyes shut again, forcing myself not to look, not to react further. But it was harder now, so much harder, because I could feel it properly. The weight of that hand, the presence in front of me, the awareness behind my shadow, 3 points surrounding me. And I realized something that made my chest go tight again. It wasn't just that there were two of them, it was that they were starting to work together. "You don't get to do that," I said through gritted teeth, though my voice shook. Those aren't the rules." A pause. Then very softly, "They change." The words slid into my ear like something alive. I felt something brush against my neck. Not a hand, not quite, something thinner, lighter, like the edge of a finger or something that wanted to be one. I forced myself to breathe, slow, controlled. "Don't panic." "Panic is fuel." "You're lying," I said. "You have limits. You had to stop at my feet. You had to stay at the door. The hand on my shoulder tightened, just slightly, not painful, but firm enough to stop me moving. "To start." My breath hitched. Start? Start what? The thing in front of me shifted. I could feel it now, right at the edge of my perception. Taller than me, leaner, its shape wrong in ways I couldn't fully grasp without looking. It leaned closer, and for a moment, just a moment, I couldn't stop myself. I opened my eyes, not fully, just enough, and I saw a face, or something where a face should be. Too smooth, too stretched, with a hollow where the eyes should sit, waiting. My vision blurred instantly, like my mind was trying to protect me from what I was seeing. I shut my eyes again, stumbling back. The hand slipped from my shoulder, the pressure shifted, and then everything stopped. Silence, complete. I stood there, shaking, barely breathing, waiting for something else to happen, but nothing did. No footsteps, no breath, no movement. Slowly, very slowly, I opened my eyes again. The flat was empty. The shadow was normal. The bedroom door stood slightly open. The chair pushed aside. Everything still. Gone. Just like that. I didn't trust it. Not for a second. But I was alone. At least it looked that way. I sank down onto the floor, my legs giving out beneath me, my hands still trembling. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay." but my voice sounded wrong, thin, distant, like it didn't quite belong to me anymore. And that's when I noticed it. Not in the room, not in the shadows, inside my head, a faint echo of my own voice, repeating something I didn't remember saying, over and over, better. My stomach dropped, because I knew with absolute certainty that whatever had just been in my flat hadn't left empty-handed. I didn't sleep. Not that night. Not properly. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt it again. That hand on my shoulder, that breath at my ear, that wrong, stretched face leaning in just far enough to be seen. So I stayed on the kitchen floor until morning, lights on, back against the wall, facing the only doorway in the flat like it might decide to move. And that word, better, it wouldn't stop. Not loud, not overwhelming, just there, like a thought that wasn't mine. Repeating quietly in the background, better, better, better. I tried to ignore it, tried to drown it out with the kettle, with the radio, with anything that sounded normal. It didn't help, because it wasn't sound. It was understanding. Something inside me had changed, and I hated that I could feel it. By late morning, I couldn't stand it anymore. I needed answers, not guesses, not rules whispered in corridors, proper answers. So I went looking for Tom. I found him where I expected, outside the takeaway again, leaning against the same wall like he hadn't moved since yesterday. He looked up as I approached, took one look at my face, and swore under his breath. "You didn't just see it again," he said. "You let it in." I didn't. I started, then stopped, because I didn't know if that was true. "I didn't invite anything," I said more carefully. "I stayed in the flat. I didn't open the door. I didn't." "You engaged," he said flatly. "Same thing sometimes." My chest tightened. "There were two of them," I said quickly. "Maybe more. One in the bedroom, one in the living room. My shadow was wrong, and then it—" Tom pushed himself off the wall, running a hand over his face. "Right," he muttered. "Right, okay, that's not good." "That's not helpful," I snapped. "No," he agreed, "but it's still true." I folded my arms, trying to keep my voice steady. "It touched me." That got his full attention. "Where?" "Shoulder," I said. "And my feet before that. Tom, it spoke. It used my voice." He went very still. "Exactly your voice?" he asked. "Yes." "Not just similar?" "No." A long pause. Then he nodded slowly, like something had just confirmed a theory he didn't want to have. "Right," he said quietly. "It's moved past testing." My stomach dropped. "What does that mean?" "It means you're not just something it noticed anymore," he said. "You're something it's working on." "I'm not a project," I snapped. He didn't argue. "No," he said. "You're a pattern." I stared at him. "A what?" "A pattern," he repeated. "Look, these things, they don't think like we do. They don't have plans the way we understand them. But they recognize sequences, reactions, cause and effect." I felt that cold weight settle in my chest again. "You mean it's learning from me?" "Yes, and getting stronger." "Yes, and there's nothing I can do about that." Tom hesitated, then said, "There are things you can do, but none of them involve pretending this isn't happening." I let out a shaky breath. "Then start talking." He glanced up at Dunmere House, then back at me. "Not here." "Why?" "Because you've already been marked," he said, "and I don't know what else is paying attention yet." That didn't make me feel better. We walked. Not far, just far enough to put a bit of distance between the building and whatever might still be tied to it. A bench near the edge of the estate, overlooking the drop towards the cliffs. The sea was visible from here, dark and restless under the gray sky. Tom sat. I didn't. I couldn't stay still. "All right," he said, watching me pace. "Tell me everything, exactly as it happened." So I did. The knocking, the handprint, the thing at the door, the footsteps in the gentle, the shadow, the two presences, the voice, my voice. And when I finished, he didn't interrupt, didn't react, just sat there silent, processing. "Well?" I demanded after a moment. He exhaled slowly. "You've triggered at least 2 separate responses," he said, "maybe 3. "Responses?" I echoed. "Different types of attention," he clarified. "The thing at your door, that's a threshold crawler. They're old, limited, bound by certain rules. Doors matter to them. Position matters." "That's the one that wanted my eyes." "Yeah," I swallowed. "And the other one?" "The one in the gentle? That's a follower, feeds on awareness. The more you notice it, the more it can act." "And now they're both involved?" "Looks like it." My stomach twisted. "That doesn't make sense," I said. "Why would 2 different things go after the same person?" Tom gave me a look. "They're not going after you in the way you think," he said. They're reacting to what you did. What did I do? I snapped. I slept in my own bed. I walked home. That's not. You broke the sequence, he cut in. I stopped pacing. What? He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You didn't follow the rules in the right order, he said. You slept facing the door. You acknowledged the knock. You noticed the thing in the genel. You looked back. I opened my mouth to argue, then stopped. Because he was right. Every step, every mistake, one after the other. And that matters? I asked quietly. It creates a chain, he said. Each thing builds on the last. Each one opens a different kind of door. I felt sick. So I basically invited everything. Not invited. He corrected. But you made yourself interesting. That word again. Interesting. Curious. Tested. I hated it. What about the voice? I asked. The way it spoke. The way it sounded like me. Tom hesitated, which up until now he hadn't done. That's the part I don't like, he said finally. Why? Because that's not something the first two should be able to do on their own. My chest tightened. What does that mean? It means something else is involved. The wind picked up slightly. That's carrying the distant crash of waves against the rocks below. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold. Something worse? I asked. Tom didn't answer straight away. He just looked at me. And that was enough. Right, I said quietly. Great. Brilliant. Fantastic. Martha. No, I said, shaking my head. No, don't sugarcoat it. Just tell me, what happens now? He stood up slowly. What happens now, he said, is you stop thinking of this like something that's happening to you. Then, what is it? He met my eyes. It's something you're already part of. The words hit harder than anything else he'd said, because deep down, I already knew that. That thing in your flat, he continued, it didn't just leave, not fully. I know, I said. I can feel it. Yeah, he nodded. That's the problem. A long silence stretched between us. Then I asked the question I didn't want the answer to. How do I get rid of it? Tom didn't hesitate this time. You don't. I laughed. A short, hollow sound. Right, of course. You manage it, he said. Same as everything else, by following the rules. Yes, and if I mess up again, he held my gaze. Then next time, it won't just be your feet it checks. The wind howled slightly over the edge of the cliffs, and for a moment I thought I heard something else underneath it. A faint echo, my own voice. Better, I clenched my fists. Then I won't mess up again, I said. Tom nodded. Good, he said. But there was something in his expression that didn't match the word. Something that said, it might already be too late. I didn't go back to my flat straight away. I told Tom I needed time to think, which was only half true. The other half was that I didn't want to be alone in that space again, not yet. Not while whatever had followed me could still be there, waiting, learning, improving. So I walked, not aimlessly, not quite, just away. Away from Dunmere, away from the estate, down towards the older part of Whitby where the streets narrow and the buildings lean just slightly too close together, like they're listening. It started raining again. Of course it did. A fine, steady drizzle that soaked through everything without ever quite becoming a proper storm. The kind of rain that makes the world feel muted, like someone's turned the volume down. I kept replaying what Tom had said. You broke the sequence. You made yourself interesting. The words sat wrong in my head. Interesting. Like I'd done something clever, like I'd chosen this. I shoved my hands into my pockets and kept walking. At some point, I realized I'd drifted further than I meant to. Past the shops, past the harbor, up along a narrow path that ran parallel to the old railway line. I didn't remember deciding to go that way. That should have been my first warning. The path was quiet, too quiet. No dog walkers, no tourists, just the distant crash of waves and the occasional creak of something metal shifting in the wind. I slowed, looked around. All right, I muttered. Where am I actually going? No answer, just the rain. Then a sign, half hidden behind overgrown bushes, its paint chipped and faded. Brindle halt, my stomach dropped. I didn't remember that being there. I'd walked this way before. I was sure of it, and I would have noticed something like that, wouldn't I? I stepped closer. The letters looked old, not abandoned exactly, just neglected, like they were meant to be seen, but not often. Don't, I whispered to myself. The word came automatically now. Don't look, don't engage, don't step where you don't understand. But then everything seemed fine, like nothing would happen. The path dipped slightly, curving down towards what looked like a platform. A proper platform. Concrete, Shelter, a bench, all of it sitting just below the level of the path, hidden enough that you wouldn't notice it unless you were already looking for something, or unless something had brought you there. My chest tightened. This isn't real, I said out loud, but my feet kept moving. Step by step, I made my way down the incline, the gravel crunching softly under my shoes. The air changed as I got closer, warmer, stiller, like I'd stepped out of the rain without actually leaving it. By the time I reached the bottom, I could barely hear the sea anymore. Just silence, thick, pressing. The platform stretched out in front of me, longer than it should have been. The shelter was painted a dull navy blue, the wood slightly warped but intact. The bench beneath it looked almost new, too new. And then I saw them. Shoes, hanging from the overhead structure, dozens of them, tied together by their laces, dangling at different heights. Small ones, children's. My breath caught. Okay, I whispered. No, this is wrong. I turned. The path back up was still there. Of course it was. Nothing had changed. I could leave. I should leave. But something pulled my attention back to the platform, to the far end, where a figure stood, perfectly still, watching me. I hadn't heard him arrive. I hadn't seen him before. He was just there. Mid-20s, maybe. Neat hair, smart coat. The sort of person you'd expect to see waiting for a train on a normal day. Except nothing about this place was normal. He smiled, polite, measured. Afternoon, he said. His voice was clear, too clear, like it didn't belong to the damp, quiet space around us. I didn't answer, didn't move. He tilted his head slightly, studying me. You're not meant to be here by accident, he continued. Not this far in. My throat went dry. I didn't mean to come here, I said. That much was true. He nodded. They rarely do. My eyes flicked to the shoes again, then back to him. What is this place? I asked. He smiled wider. Depends who's asking. Martha. Ah, he said softly. Yes, I thought so. My stomach twisted. You know me? Not personally, he said. But your sex situation has been noted. That word again. Noticed. Noted. Interesting. I felt anger spike through the fear. I didn't ask for any of this, I said. No one ever does. Then why am I here? He took a few slow steps towards me. Not threatening, not aggressive, just deliberate. Because something opened a path, he said, and you followed it. I didn't choose to. Choice is a complicated thing, he replied. I shook my head. No, this is something else. This is Brindle Halt, he said lightly. A place that exists when it needs to. My pulse quickened. And what happens here? I asked. He stopped a few feet away, close enough now that I could see the details. His eyes were wrong, not in shape, not in color, just depth. Like there was more behind them than there should be. People arrive, he said, and sometimes they leave. I swallowed. And the ones who don't? He glanced up at the shoes, then back at me. They're still here, he said. A cold silence settled between us. I forced myself to stay still, to think, to not react the way he might want me to. I'm leaving, I said finally. He didn't move. Of course you are, he said. You're not bound to this place. Then get out of my way. He stepped aside immediately, too easily, gesturing politely towards the path. By all means, I hesitated. Something about that felt wrong, too simple, too allowed. What's the catch? I asked. He smiled again. There's always a catch, he said, but not always for you. That didn't help, at all. I took a step back towards the incline, then another. He didn't follow, didn't stop me, just watched. Wait, he said suddenly. I froze, every instinct screaming at me to keep going. But I didn't. What? I asked. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled something out, a small object, dark, shiny. He held it out towards me. A courtesy, he said, for finding your way here. I didn't take it. What is it? Something that might help, Etsky replied. That was not reassuring. I don't want anything from you, I said. His smile didn't falter. Wise, he said, but perhaps not practical. I shook my head. No. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he nodded once. As you wish. He slipped the object back into his pocket. But you should know, he added, his tone shifting slightly, the next time you come here, I'm not coming back. He ignored that. You may not have the option to refuse. A chill ran through me. I turned, started up the path, didn't look back, not once. The rain hit me again as I reached the top, cold and real and grounding. The sound of the sea rushed back in. The world returned, normal or close enough. I kept walking until I could see the streets again, until there were people, cars, noise, anything that made this feel less like a dream. But as I slowed, catching my breath, something caught my eye. My reflection, in the window of a parked car. I stopped, just for a second, just to check, to make sure I was still me. The reflection stared back, same face, same expression, same everything. But behind me, in the glass, there was someone standing on the path, watching. I turned. There was no one there. When I looked back at the reflection, they were gone. I stepped away from the car quickly, heart racing, and that word, that awful, quiet echo, slipped into my mind again. Better. I clenched my jaw, because I knew now with absolute certainty Brindle Halt hadn't been a detour. It had been part of the pattern, and next time, it wouldn't let me leave so easily. I shouldn't have gone back to my flat. That's the truth of it. After Brindle Halt, after the shoes, after that man with the too polite smile, I should have stayed anywhere else. A hotel, a friend's sofa, even the bloody hospital waiting room, anywhere but Dunmere. But there's something about your own space, even when it's wrong, even when it's dangerous. You tell yourself it's safer because it's familiar. So I went back. The walk up felt longer than usual, every step heavier, yet like the building itself was aware I was returning. The front door creaked as I pushed it open. Inside, the stairwell was dim. The light on the 4th floor flickered again. Of course it did. I climbed anyway. 2nd floor, 3rd. By the time I reached the 5th, I was already tense, my shoulders tight, my breathing shallow. Nothing happened. No footsteps, no breath, no dragging, just silence. And somehow that was worse. I reached my door, stood there for a moment, listening. Nothing. I unlocked it slowly, pushed it open. The flat looked normal, exactly as I'd left it. Chair by the bedroom door, towels over the mirrors, curtains shut, no movement, no sound. I stepped inside, closed the door behind me, locked it, chained it. Same routine, same false sense of control. All right, I muttered, you're fine. Just don't think about it. I moved through the flat carefully, checking each room without really checking, not looking too closely, not giving anything the chance to be something. The bedroom was empty. The chair had been pushed slightly to the side, but I told myself I'd probably done that in a rush. The bed was still facing the right way, feet to the door. Good. I stayed in the living room after that. Didn't sit, didn't relax, just existed. Hours passed like that, or what felt like hours. The light outside shifted slowly towards evening, the gray turning darker, heavier. And that's when it started. The knocking, soft, careful, 3 times. From the hallway, I froze, every part of me going still. Knock, 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 not loud, not aggressive, patient, waiting. My eyes flicked to the door, then away again. Don't answer, don't acknowledge, don't engage. The rules felt louder now, clearer, sharp my breath. The knocking didn't come again. For a moment, I thought that was it, that I'd done it right this time, that I'd passed some kind of test, but then everything seemed fine, like nothing would happen until I heard it. From the other side of the door, a voice, my voice. Martha? I felt my stomach drop so fast it made me dizzy. Martha, it's me. The tone was perfect, casual, familiar, like I was calling out to myself from the corridor. Open the door. My hands clenched into fists. No, I whispered. Come on, the voice continued. It's fine. There's nothing there. I backed away slowly, step by step. You checked already, didn't you? It said. You looked. You saw nothing. That was the worst part, because it was true. Just open it, my voice insisted. You're being stupid. I shook my head hard. No, that's not. Or are you scared? The tone shifted slightly, sharper, mocking. After everything, you're just going to hide? My chest tightened, because it knew exactly where to press, exactly what to say. I'm not hiding, I said, louder now. I'm being careful. Careful doesn't mean anything if you're wrong, it replied instantly. Silence stretched between us, then a new sound, soft, wet, sliding. From under the door I stared, horrified, as something thin began to push through the gap, not fully, just the edge of it, shiny, moving slowly, like a strip of something that didn't quite hold together. My breath caught. No, I whispered. No. The thing pushed further, a sliver, then another and another, until I realized it wasn't just something, it was pieces. My stomach lurched, because I recognized the fabric, blue, school uniform blue. Oh God, I breathed. The pieces twitched, shifted, trying to align, trying to connect. A sound came with them. Faint. Hello? I stumbled back, my legs nearly giving out. No, I said again, louder now. No. The voice at the door softened. See? It said. You should open it. The pieces on the floor moved again. More of them pushing through the gap now. Thin slices, layered, sliding over each other. And then An eye, just one, set into a narrow strip of skin, blinking, looking up at me. Cold, it whispered. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Because I knew exactly what I was looking at. Callum Pike, or what was left of him. Help, the eye said, rolling slightly to focus on me. My vision blurred. No, I whispered. No, this isn't real. This isn't. You wanted answers, the voice at the door said calmly. This is one. The pieces shifted again, trying to pull themselves together, trying to form something whole. But they couldn't, not properly. They kept slipping, falling apart. Hurts, the eye said. Something inside me broke. I took a step forward. Just one, and that was enough. The voice at the door sharpened instantly. Yes, it said. That's it. The handle rattled. The chain on the door pulled tight. The pieces on the floor surged forward, more of them pushing through, faster now, desperate. I stopped, forced myself back. No, I said louder. No, this is wrong. This is, please, the eye whispered. Tears blurred my vision. I'm sorry, I choked. I'm so sorry. The pieces stilled. Just for a moment, the eye fixed on me, and something in it changed. Not pain, not fear, understanding. Not you, it said softly. My chest tightened. What? I whispered. The voice at the door went quiet, listening. The eye blinked once, slow. They cut, it murmured. The pieces shifted weakly. Still here. My breath caught. Still here. Not gone, not finished. The voice at the door spoke again, softer now. You could fix it, it said. You could help. I shook my head. I don't know how. You do, it insisted. You've already learned so much. That word again. Learned. Better. I looked down at the pieces, at the eye, at the way they struggled to exist, and I realized something that made my stomach turn. They weren't just trying to come through the door. They were trying to come back, and I was the only thing standing in the way. Open the door, my voice whispered. I stepped back again, further, until my back hit the wall. No, I said, shaking. No, I'm not doing this. The eye closed, slowly, the pieces stilled, and the voice at the door changed. The warmth vanished, the familiarity twisted. You could have helped, it said. The tone was no longer mine. It was deeper, colder, disappointed. You chose not to. The chain on the door rattled once more, then went still. Silence filled the flat again. Heavy, final. The pieces on the floor stopped moving. The eye didn't open again. I stood there, shaking, staring at them, my chest tight with something I couldn't name. Guilt, relief, horror, all of it tangled together. And somewhere deep in my mind, that echo returned. Clearer now, stronger, better. I closed my eyes because I understood that hadn't been a test of survival. It had been a test of choice. And I didn't know if I'd passed or failed. I don't remember deciding to move. 1 second I was pressed against the wall, staring at what was left of Callum on the floor, and the next I was kneeling in front of him. Or whatever he was now. The pieces had stopped shifting, but they hadn't gone still in the way something dead goes still. There was still tension in them. A faint twitch here and there, like muscles trying to remember what they were supposed to do. The eye was closed. That was worse. Callum? I whispered, even though I knew names didn't matter here. No response. The voice at the door had gone quiet, completely. That should have been a relief. It wasn't, because it meant something had changed, and I didn't know what. I leaned closer, my hands hovering just above the pieces. I didn't want to touch them. God, I didn't want to touch them. But I couldn't just leave him like that either. You said, you're still here, I murmured. What does that mean? For a moment, nothing happened. Then the eye opened, just a fraction, enough to look at me. Hurts, it breathed. My throat tightened. I know, I said quickly. I know, what do you want me to do? The pieces shifted weakly, not moving forward, not trying to come through anymore, just adjusting. Together, it whispered. I froze. Together. I looked down at the strips of flesh, the fragments of uniform, the way they lay scattered just inside the door. He wanted. No, I said immediately. No, I can't. The eye blinked slowly. Please. My hands shook. This was wrong. Everything about this was wrong. Tom had said it. You don't engage. You don't help. You don't make it worse. But then I looked at him again. Really looked. At the way the pieces didn't quite line up. At the way the eye strained to stay focused. At the quiet, desperate effort just to exist. And something in me broke all over again. I don't know if this will help, I said, my voice barely steady. I don't even know if this is... The eye didn't close this time. It just watched, waiting, trusting. That was the worst part, the trust. I swallowed hard. Then slowly, carefully, I reached out. My fingers brushed the nearest piece. Warm, not cold, not dead. Warm. I flinched, but didn't pull away. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay, just stay still. I'll try." I picked up the first strip. It was lighter than it should have been. Too light, like something essential was missing. I placed it closer to the others. Then another and another. Each one sliding slightly as it touched the rest, like it was trying to align itself, but didn't quite know how. "Yes," the voice murmured faintly. I worked faster, not rushing, just focused, trying to piece him together in a way that made sense, arm to arm, torso to torso, fragments of clothing lining up where they should be, but it didn't fit, not properly. The edges didn't match, the shapes were wrong, like someone had cut him without caring how he would go back together. My breathing grew uneven. "This isn't working," I said. "I can't keep going," he whispered. I clenched my teeth, forced myself to continue, piece by piece, strip by strip, until something like a shape began to form. Not whole, not human, but closer. The eyes shifted, trying to align with what should have been a face. Almost. I sat back slightly, my hands trembling. "There," I said. That's the best I can do." For a moment, nothing happened. Then everything moved at once. The pieces tightened, pulled together, not neatly, not correctly, but forcefully, like something inside them had taken over. My heart jumped into my throat. "Callum," I said. The shape twitched, the eye rolled, focused on me. And then it smiled. Wrong, too wide, too deep. My stomach dropped. "No," I whispered. "No, that's not." The voice that came out of it wasn't his, not anymore. "Better," it said. I scrambled back, my hands slipping against the floor. "No, no, no." The shape lurched forward. Not walking, not crawling, sliding, fast. I hit the wall hard, panic finally breaking through. "You said you were still here," I shouted. "I am," it replied. But the tone wasn't pleading anymore. It was calm, certain, and behind it, something else, something older. "You helped," it continued. "You improved the form." My chest tightened. "I didn't mean." "You did," it said simply. The shape shifted again, adjusting itself, correcting its own structure in small, jerking movements. Each one more stable than the last, each one more functional. "You showed us how you think things should go together." It's my breath caught. "No, yes." The word landed softly. Final. I stared at it, horror flooding through me. "You weren't trying to save him," it said. "You were trying to make sense of him." "That's not—" "It is," it interrupted. "And that is what we needed." My vision blurred, because I understood. I hadn't helped Callum. I'd helped them, given them a better structure, a better shape, a better way to exist. The thing in front of me tilted its head, studying me. "Better," it repeated. That word again. Always that word. I shook my head, backing away further. "I didn't know," I said. "I didn't know what you were." "You knew enough," it said. The shape moved closer, smoother now, more controlled. "You always do," it added. My hands scrabbled against the floor, up searching for anything I could use. The knife, gone. "Of course it was. You said you needed help," I whispered. "We did. And now?" The thing paused. Then, "Now we need more." My heart stopped. "What do you mean?" It didn't answer straight away. It just looked at me, really looked, like it was measuring something, assessing, and then it spoke again. "Your eyes," it said. The words hit harder than anything else, because they weren't new, they were familiar, from the doorway, from the beginning. This had always been the direction, always been the goal. I scrambled to my feet, my back hitting the wall again. "No," I said louder now. "No, you don't get to. You already gave us form," it said. "Now we refine it." My pulse pounded in my ears. "This is wrong," I said. "This isn't how it works." "It is now." The shape took another step, closer, too close. And I realized something that made everything inside me go cold. The rules hadn't protected me. They just delayed this. Every mistake, every choice, every attempt to understand had led here. And now there was nothing left to stop it. I didn't run. I should have. Everything in me screamed to move, to get out, to put as much distance as possible between myself and the thing I just helped create. But I didn't, because something in its voice, that calm certainty, made it clear there wasn't a direction I could run in that it wouldn't understand. "Your eyes," it said again. Closer now. I could hear the wet shift of its body correcting itself with each movement. Not walking properly. Not yet. But improving. Always improving. "No," I said, my voice shaking. "No, you're not getting anything else from me." It tilted its head, watching, learning. Then it stopped completely. The movement ceased, the sound faded, the presence shifted, like it had lost interest. My chest tightened, because that didn't feel like a victory, it felt like a decision. Wait, I said before I could stop myself. Stupid. Always stupid. The thing didn't respond. It didn't need to, because I felt it. That shift in attention. Not on me anymore. Somewhere else. My stomach dropped. "What are you doing?" I asked. No answer. But then, from down the hallway, a sound. Soft, familiar. A door creaking open. I turned before I could stop myself. The bathroom. The towel I'd hung over the mirror had slipped. Just a little. Not fallen. Just loosened. Enough for a thin sliver of reflective glow through, and in that sliver, I saw movement. Not in the room. Not behind me. In the reflection. A shape. Standing where the thing had been a moment ago. But clearer. More complete. My breath caught. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." The thing wasn't in front of me anymore. It had moved. Not physically. Not in a way I could follow, but into the reflection. I could feel it. The air in the flat changed again. Not heavier this time. Sharper. Focused. Like a line being drawn. "You can't do that," I said, backing away. Those are different. "They connect," the voice said. But it didn't come from the room. It came from the mirror. My voice. Again. But clearer, stronger, more stable. I shook my head, panic rising fast now. "No, no, that's not how this works. You're not supposed to." "You showed us," it said. The reflection shifted, the shape aligning more cleanly now. Edges smoothing, features forming. Not human, not yet, but closer. "You look," it continued. "You understand, you improve." My back hit the wall again. I couldn't stop staring. That was the problem. I knew the rule. Don't look in mirrors when it's dark. But it wasn't fully dark. Not completely. There was still light from the living room. Still enough to pretend it was safe. And that's how it gets you. That little bit of almost. "Stop looking," I whispered to myself. But I didn't. I couldn't, because I needed to see what it was doing. Needed to understand. And that need was exactly what it wanted. The reflection leaned closer, its head tilting in that same unnatural way. And for the first time, I saw something like eyes. Not fully formed, not right, but there, hollow spaces filling in, shaping. My heart slammed against my ribs. "No," I said louder now. "No, you don't get to use that. That's yours," it finished. The word hit like a punch. I stumbled forward without meaning to. Just a step. Just enough to get a clearer look. And that was all it needed. The mirror surface rippled, not visibly, not like water, but something shifted. Something opened. I felt it before I understood it. That same sensation from before, but deeper, stronger. Like something reaching through instead of just touching. My reflection blinked, out of sync, my stomach dropped. "No," I whispered. "No, that's not." It smiled. Not me, the reflection, smiling when I wasn't, too wide, too deep. And then, behind it, I saw something else. Not in the room, not in the flat. Somewhere further back, a shape, watching, waiting, older. That was the moment everything clicked. This wasn't just about the things in my flat, or the thing in the gentle, or even the thing I'd helped rebuild. This was connected. Layers. Each one feeding into the next. Each one using the same rules in slightly different ways. "You're not alone," I said. The reflection tilted its head. "Neither are you," it replied. My throat tightened. "What do you want?" I asked. "Completion." The word echoed slightly. Not just in the mirror, in my head. In the flat. Everywhere. Completion of what? It didn't answer directly. It just raised its hand. My hand. But not following me, leading me. And pressed its fingers against the inside of the glass. I felt it on my face. The exact same pressure, the exact same position. I gasped, stumbling back. No, stop. "You see now," it said, "how it fits." My vision blurred, because I did. I saw the pattern, the progression. Door, shadow, form, reflection, each step building on the last. Each mistake opening the next layer. And now this. "Your eyes," it said again. Closer, more certain. I shook my head violently. No, that's not happening. I'm not letting you." "You already have," it interrupted. My breath caught. "What?" "You looked." The word landed softly, but it felt like a verdict. Final. Absolute. And I realized with a clarity that made my chest go tight, this wasn't a new step. This was the end of the sequence. Everything I'd done, every time I'd looked, every time I tried to understand, had led here. To this moment. The reflection leaned closer. The not eyes focusing, sharpening. And behind it, that deeper shape shifted. Interested, watching, waiting for the result. "You are very good at learning," it said. My stomach turned. "Please," I whispered. "Just stop. Just leave." The reflection didn't move, didn't blink, didn't change. Better, it said. And I knew this wasn't something I could fix. Not anymore. I don't remember leaving my flat. That's the first thing. One moment I was standing in front of the bathroom mirror, watching something that wasn't me smile back. And the next, I was outside. Cold air in my lungs, rain on my face, my hands shaking so badly I could barely feel them. I must have run. I must have. Because Dunmere was already behind me, its concrete shape looming dark against the sky, windows glowing faintly like rows of watching eyes. I bent forward, hands on my knees, trying to breathe. Okay, I whispered. Okay, you're out. You're fine. You're... A voice cut through the rain. Martha? I flinched so hard I nearly fell. Tom stood a few meters away, half hidden under the flickering streetlight, his expression tight. Jesus, he said, stepping closer. What happened? I tried to answer. Nothing came out. My throat felt raw, my head wrong, like something had shifted inside it. He grabbed my shoulders. Martha, look at me. I did, or at least, I tried to, because for a second his face didn't line up. It flickered. Just a fraction, like I was seeing two versions of him at once. I squeezed my eyes shut, opened them again. He looked normal. Say something, he insisted. My voice cracked. It's not just the flat, he stilled. What do you mean? It's layers, I said, struggling to get the words out. Doorways, shadows, reflections. They're connected. I saw it. I felt it. Tom's grip tightened slightly. You looked in a mirror, didn't you? I didn't answer. Didn't need to. His jaw clenched. Right, he muttered. Right, okay. That's bad. That's all you've got? I snapped, a hysterical edge creeping into my voice. That's bad? He ignored the tone. Did it cross? He asked. Properly? I don't know, I said. It moved. It wasn't just in the room anymore. It was... I stopped because something else had just caught my attention. The building. Dunmere. The lights. They weren't steady. They flickered. Not like faulty wiring, like movement. My stomach dropped. Tom, I said slowly, has that always been like that? He turned, followed my gaze, and went very, very still. No, he said. We watched together as one of the windows on the 6th floor went dark, then another, not all at once, one by one, like something was moving from room to room. Elsie, I whispered. Tom swore. Stay here, he said. No, steer. He ran straight towards the building. I stood frozen for a second. Then I followed. Of course I did. The stairwell door slammed open as we pushed inside. The air hit me immediately. Heavy, wrong, not like before. This was worse, thicker, like something had spread. The lights flickered overhead, buzzing unevenly. 2nd floor, 3rd. We took the stairs 2 at a time. 4th floor, the flickering light burst completely, plunging the landing into darkness. Tom didn't stop. Keep moving, he snapped. 5th, 6th. The corridor was darker than it should have been. Not just unlit, dim, like the light was being absorbed. Mrs. Harrow's door stood open, wide, too wide. Elsie? Tom called. No answer. We stepped inside. And I wish I hadn't. The room was wrong. Not just disturbed, rearranged. The bed was empty, sheets twisted and pulled tight against the walls, stretched like fabric under tension. The wardrobe door hung open, its contents spilling out in long, tangled lines. But that wasn't the worst part. The walls. I couldn't understand what I was seeing at first. Just shapes, lines, patterns. Then it clicked. Skin, stretched, pinned, not neatly, not deliberately, just placed in strips across the surface. My stomach lurched. Jesus Christ, Tom breathed. The air smelled faintly metallic and something else, damp, familiar. I forced myself to look further. And that's when I saw her, Elsie, or what was left of her. She wasn't on the bed. She wasn't even on the floor. She was everywhere. Her body had been taken apart, not cleanly, not like Callum, and spread across the room like someone trying to understand how it all fit together. Her arms stretched along the walls, her legs folded unnaturally across the wardrobe door. Her torso, I couldn't even process it properly. It was wrong. All of it. Wrong in ways that didn't make sense. And her face was still mostly intact, propped against the far wall. Eyes open, looking straight at the doorway, at us, at me. My knees nearly gave out. No, I whispered. No, this isn't. Tom grabbed my arm, pulling me back. Don't get closer, he said sharply. I choked. She's still looking. I know, he said. His voice had gone flat, controlled. Too controlled. That scared me more than anything else. Is she? I couldn't finish the sentence. Tom didn't answer. Because something moved. Not in the room, in her face. A small twitch. Barely noticeable, but enough. My breath hitched. "She's alive," I said, horror flooding through me. "Not in a way that matters," Tom replied. I shook my head, tears blurring my vision. "No, we have to." "We don't," he said firmly. "We can't." The word hit hard. Can't, not won't, can't. A sound came from the hallway. Both of us froze, slow, footsteps. Coming towards the open door, Tom tightened his grip on my arm. "We're leaving," he said. "But now." The footsteps got closer. I could feel it. That same pressure from before, but bigger, stronger, like it had grown. We backed out of the room slowly, didn't turn our backs, didn't speak. The corridor stretched out behind us, dim and wrong. The footsteps stopped just beyond the doorway. Waiting, listening. I could feel it watching. Not just us. The room, the walls, the patterns, learning. "Go," Tom whispered. We turned, ran, down the stairs, out of the building, back into the rain. I didn't stop until we were halfway down the street, my lungs burning, my legs shaking. I bent over, gasping for breath. "Tom," I choked. What was that?" He didn't answer straight away. He just looked back at Dunmere, at the windows, at the darkness spreading inside. Then he said quietly, "You weren't the only one it was learning from." My chest tightened. "What does that mean?" He looked at me, really looked, and for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. "It means," he said, "you've made it better." The word echoed in my head again, louder now, stronger, better. And I realized this wasn't contained anymore. Not in my flat, not in one room, not even in one person. It had spread, and I had helped it do that. I didn't go back to Dunmere. Not that night, not the next, not ever, if I could help it. They sealed off the 6th floor the following morning. Police tape, statements, quiet conversations in stairwells. Officially, it was a medical emergency. Something about a collapse, confusion, an elderly resident in distress. No one said anything about the walls. No one said anything about the way the lights had gone out one by one. No one said anything about the patterns, but the people who lived there, they knew. I saw it in their faces when I passed by a few days later, just long enough to collect what little I'd left behind. No one lingered in the corridors. No one stood near doorways. And every single bed, every single one, was turned the same way. Feet towards the door. No exceptions. I moved out that week. Didn't tell work where I was going. Didn't tell anyone, really, except Tom. He helped me carry the last of my things down the stairs. Didn't say much, didn't ask questions, just stayed close. "You'll be all right," he said eventually, as we stood outside with my bags piled at our feet. It didn't sound like reassurance. It sounded like hope. "Will I?" He hesitated, then gave a small shrug. "You're still here," he said. "That's something." I almost laughed, almost. But that word, still, it stuck, because I wasn't sure what it meant anymore. Still me? Still safe? Still human? I nodded anyway. "Yeah," I said quietly. "That's something." We didn't say goodbye properly. There didn't seem to be a point. People like us don't really get clean endings. Just distance, time, and the hope that whatever noticed you first might lose interest. I found a place further inland, smaller, quieter. No tall buildings, no long corridors, no shared stairwells. Just a narrow terraced house with a front door that opened straight onto the street. I checked everything before I moved in. Every mirror, every window, every corner. I made sure the bed was against the wall. Feet towards the door, always. I leave a light on at night now. Not bright. Just enough. Enough to see the doorway. Enough to make sure nothing stands there unnoticed. And I don't look behind me when I'm walking home. Not ever. Not even when I feel it, because I do, sometimes. Not often, but enough. A shift in the air, a delay in my shadow, a breath that doesn't quite belong to me. I don't react, I don't acknowledge it, I don't give it anything. That's the rule. That's the only rule that matters now. Don't give it anything. But there are other rules too. The ones people pretend they don't know. The ones you feel more than you learn. Close your wardrobe door properly. Don't leave mirrors uncovered at night. Don't answer knocks that come at the wrong time. Don't step where something tells you not to. And most importantly, don't try to understand. That's the trap. That's what got me. Not fear, not panic, curiosity, the need to make sense of it, to fix it, to help. I think about Callum sometimes, about the way he looked at me, the way he said, "Not you." I think about Elsie too, the way her eyes stayed open, the way she was still there. And I wonder if they're still there now, somewhere. Part of it, part of whatever is still learning, because it didn't stop. I know that. I feel it in small ways, subtle ways, the kind you can ignore if you try hard enough. A reflection that takes a second too long to match. A shadow that leans when you don't. A voice in your head that sounds like your own, but isn't. It doesn't rush anymore. It doesn't need to. It's patient. Tom was right about that. Things that are patient don't give up. They wait, they learn, they improve, and sometimes they find new people. People who don't know the rules. People who think it's all just stories, superstition, nonsense. Maybe that's you. Maybe you're reading this and thinking the same thing I did, that it's just something people say, something old, something harmless. I hope so. I really do. Because if you already know the rules, you might be safe. But if you don't, then you need to listen. Properly. Not casually. Not like it's a joke. Because this is the only warning you'll get. Sleep with your feet towards the door. Always. Don't look behind you when you feel something there. Even if you're sure. Even if you need to know. And if you ever hear knocking, 3 times. Slow, patient. Don't answer it. No matter what it sounds like. No matter who it pretends to be. Because by the time it knows your voice, by the time it can say your name, it's already learned enough. And the next thing it takes won't be your feet. It will be your eyes. And once it has those, you won't need to look anymore. Because you'll already be part of what's looking back. If you felt something behind you right now, would you look or would you already know better? Subscribe to the channel so you never miss truly terrifying horror stories and unsolved mysteries. What do you think about this story? Would you have looked behind you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hit like if you found this video creepy, compelling, and want more spine-chilling stories like this. Stay safe, and remember, some rules exist for a reason.